How do you know what's the right Medigap plan for you in 2025? Today, we are going to compare and simplify all of these options for you. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Welcome back to another Medicare happy hour, where we have the most fun on the internet while talking about Medicare, because let's be honest, navigating Medicare typically makes you want to have a drink. So today I am sipping on a clementine winter cocktail, and I'm going to teach you how to make this at the end, but also the ingredients and the instructions are listed in the notes below. All right, so before we begin talking about the difference between the different Medicare supplements, I do want to kind of give a quick overview as to what are Medicare supplement plans. So as I said earlier, these are known as Medigap plans, and they're health insurance policies. They're sold by private insurance companies. Now, they're designed to be paired with original Medicare, your parts A and B, and they do not include your prescription drugs. So if you're on a Medicare supplement or a Medigap plan, you do need to purchase a Part D prescription drug plan to go with it. There are 10 different types of Medigap plans. They are alphabetical. They are lettered A through D. There's an F plan, a G plan, and then K through N. Obviously, that is not perfect alphabetical order. In 2010, they got rid of a few and added a couple new ones in. So that's why we're missing an E and a couple other letters there. So these are standardized. So if you're on an F or a G plan with one insurance company in one area, it is the same plan no matter where you live or which insurance company you enroll in a plan with. So the couple other important things to note about these plans is there are no networks associated with Medicare Supplement or Medigap plans. As long as a provider accepts Medicare, they will accept your Medicare Supplement. The other thing I do want to mention with a Medicare Supplement or Medigap plan is that generally these plans are, you pay more in a monthly premium, but then you pay little to nothing when you use care. So if you're going to the doctor or you're in the hospital, you typically have little to no out-of-pocket expenses, but you are paying a set premium each month, and that can increase just like your homeowners or your auto insurance every single year. All right, so now that we've kind of framed up what Medicare supplements or Medigap plans are, I am going to dive into the various different supplement plans you can select between and essentially what they cover. So before we begin, this really is the type of thing that you're going to need a sip of a cocktail to dive into. All right, and that's a good one. So as we look here, as I mentioned earlier, these are lettered A through N, got rid of a few, added a couple of new ones. And what we're looking at here is this list of benefits and how each plan covers that. So for example, Part A, your coinsurance, your hospital costs basically, your Part B coinsurance, blood, Part A hospice care, skilled nursing facility, your Part A and Part B deductibles. And your Part A deductible, as an example, this is a pretty significant number. In 2025, this is $1,676. Now, your Part B deductible is significantly less. In 2025, it's $257. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Part B excess charges are, and then the foreign travel emergency, which plan covers which. So diving in first, Plan A, as you can see here, has the least amount of squares covered. So for example, it's going to cover everything in your Part A coinsurance, your Part B coinsurance, blood, hospice care, but then there are a lot of holes in this plan here. So the good news is this is the least expensive of all of the supplements, but obviously it's the least expensive because it covers the least amount of things. So kind of moving here into B, this is very similar, but this is going to pick up that significant Part A deductible if you're in the hospital. So that's going to be covered on this one. Now moving into Plan C here, this is when you start to see things are really covered more significantly than some of the other plans. So, it's going to cover everything. If you select a Medicare Supplement Plan C, it's going to cover everything through the Part B deductible. It's not going to cover your Part B excess charges, and it's going to cover a significant amount of your foreign travel, the emergency coverage if you're traveling overseas. But I do want to briefly explain that the Part B excess charges, this is not something that applies in every state by any means. But the way that this works is there are certain states that have allowed, since it's Part B, it's the doctor side of things. So there are certain states that have allowed doctors to go ahead and charge in excess of what Medicare allows. So they can charge up to 15% more than the Medicare allowed amount. So for example, if you're on a C plan and you go to the doctor, your supplement's going to pick up most of it. Medicare's going to pay their portion, and then you could get a small bill of up to 15% extra from that doctor. So you'll see that's not covered here on the C plan. So that's just, one example of what that means. Now, D is similar to C, except it does not cover your Part B deductible. That's that $257 in 2025 I mentioned earlier. Now, your Plan F, this is generally thought of as the Cadillac or the most all-encompassing of the Medicare supplements. So you'll see here that it covers everything except for it covers as much of the foreign travel as you're going to get on any of these plans. Now, the G plan, this is generally the most popular plan that we see nowadays, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. But you'll see with the G plan, it covers everything the same as the F, except for that Part B deductible. Now, as I mentioned earlier, $257 is not a small amount of money, but it's not a catastrophic amount of money. And so they really, the reason we see most people on this is it's kind of reduced some of the premiums by saying, all right, you pick up that Part B deductible, but then, it still covers everything else very comprehensively. Now, moving into the K plan, you'll see this really, the K and the L really start to reduce the amount they cover in certain categories. They skip the Part B deductible, the excess charges, and the foreign travel altogether, but you'll see the K outside of the Part A hospital costs, both the K and the L, they only cover 50% on the K and 75% on the L of all of these categories. Now, what they've done for the K and the L plan, though, is that they have instituted an out-of-pocket limit. So, with the 50% on the K, the most you would pay is $7,220 in those additional charges. And on the L, it would be $3,610. And that's because, the 50% versus 100% coverage here, same with the L on the 75%. Now, again, by you taking on more of these costs, it does reduce your premium, but you have to kind of weigh out what those options look like for you. Now, wrapping it up with the M and the N plan. So you'll notice here that the M and the N, they look very similar. The M covers everything on down to the Part A deductible. But as a reminder, that's the one that I mentioned earlier. That is $1,676. So that's a significant amount of money. And if you're paying half of that, obviously your premium is going to be less on an M plan. The M plan does not cover the Part B deductible or the Part B excess charges. So you could still receive bills for those excess charges on the M. Now, wrapping it up with the N plan. This one is a little different than the other supplements. So I do want to go ahead and really make you aware of how this plan works. So the N plan, you'll see it's $100 for everything on here, except for this one. There's an asterisk here. We always have to be careful with asterisks. So you'll notice that the asterisk is on the Part B coinsurance. Now, the way that this plan works is you could be charged up to $20 every time you go see a doctor. So let's say, as an example, you go to your primary care, you could be charged up to that $20 on this N plan. Now, the good news is that does reduce your premiums. We see the N plan premiums lower than a lot of the other ones, and it kind of puts some skin in your game. You're paying when you actually go to the doctor, but if you're in the hospital, everything's covered the same as it would be. Any Medicare covered expense in the hospital would be covered at 100%. So the only thing here that you'll see is the Part B deductible and the Part B excess charges are still not applicable here. So just things to think about on the N plan. So a couple of things I do want to mention before we wrap up here. Now, if you turn 65, let me grab my trusty marker here. You turn 65 on or after January 1st of 2020, the following plans are not available to you. C, D, and F. What they've done is they've said what we would really prefer moving forward is that everybody pay their Part B deductible. So if you turn 65 after January of 2020, regardless of which supplement you're going to select, you're going to have to pay that Part B deductible. So they got rid of C, D, and F. I know D doesn't have that Part B deductible, but there were other reasons why they got rid of that one. So now moving forward, you can enroll in those plans. But, as you can see, there's still plenty of Medicare supplements available, and it's just your choice as to which one works best for you. So frequently we get the question of what's the best option? Well, ultimately, the best option is what works for you specifically. Are you the type that your budget is a little tighter, but you want the protection if you're in the hospital? Or are you the type that would rather just pay more and not have to worry about things when you go to the doctor or you're in the hospital, etc.? Ultimately, it comes down to what your comfort level is and your specific situation. So to kind of put a bow on this, like I said, there's no best supplement. There's a right plan for each specific person that's right for you at that point. And, we might get a couple in here and one plan's right for the husband and another plan's right for the wife. Or it, really kind of depends. Your neighbor and you might end up on different options. But, your situation is the most important thing to keep in mind. And I would really recommend that individuals think about the fact that retirement is not a requirement when it comes to Medicare. I mentioned here that a lot of these plans outside of a $257 deductible, they pick up the vast majority of your healthcare costs. Now, as you know, a lot of employers have $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 deductibles on your employer health insurance. So really, I would recommend you weigh out the options when you turn 65, even if you are continuing to work. And at the end of the day, just give us a call. We're here. We're happy to help. And, depending upon the day, we might even have a clementine winter cocktail ready for you. So today we are making a clementine winter cocktail. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So we have a couple of shortcuts here, but I'll go ahead and update you as we go. So first things first, I would recommend going ahead and rimming your glass with some sugar. Then feel free to add to the glass some ice. Try not to get your sugar off there. All right, so from here, we're going to go ahead and get started with the ingredients. So first things first, we are going to add 2 ounces of vodka. All right, and next we have fresh squeezed clementine juice. So I've got my clementines here, but to be honest, we already squeezed this, so I have them here. So 2.5 ounces, so a little bit more than we did with the vodka. Then we're going to go ahead and add 1/2 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice. Now, I am a big proponent of work smarter, not harder. So we have our lemon juice in a bottle here. Got that in. Up next, we are going to have 1 ounce of simple syrup. And we're going to go ahead and get that all stirred up. From there, we would recommend go ahead and garnishing it with a sprig of rosemary. Cheers.